If you set out across this blue marble of ours and talk to a few of the 6.5 billion people who live here, you will be amazed by the pockets of joy you find in the most unlikely places. I've met happy mothers in the dusty villages of Africa, happy Tibetans toiling under Chinese oppression, happy families in the slums of Bombay. To understand this sort of human contentment, Dan Buettner founded a global project called Blue Zones. He showed us how a liberal, tolerant, democratic society helps make Denmark the happiest country in the world. But could we find similar contentment in a place with one political party, a censored press, and no jury trials? A place with the highest execution rate in the world? Welcome to Singapore, the happiest country in Asia.
95% of the people around us say they're either somewhat happy or very happy. That's a very high proportion for Asia.
That was not the case 40 years ago, when a man named Lee Kuan Yew took power and laid down the law. He banned spitting, chewing gum, and long hair, and even paid educated people to breed. With his draconian laws, he transformed Singapore from a smelly, chaotic seaport into one of the richest, cleanest, safest, and most efficient big cities in the world. But it is still the kind of nanny state where the warning on a cigarette pack is a color photo of cancer. And woe unto those who litter or forget to flush.
Just follow the rules. Here is based on the rules. Rules and very systematic country.
There are fines for the smallest infractions, and more serious criminals are strapped to a rack and beaten with a bamboo cane.
Were you ever caned?
Oh, yes, many times.
Describe that. What's that like?
Oh, it was a horrible, painful experience.
After serving 15 years for gang crimes, Neville Tan is now a pastor with a prison ministry. He has seen and felt Singaporean justice, and he doesn't mind it one bit.
We feel safe. We don't break the law. If we stay within the law, we don't have to worry about the law. I've been in America, and I know people can get away with anything. I find there's too much freedom.
These people have different values than we do. For them, security and orderliness and cleanliness are very important.
Asians in general don't really step out of bounds too often.
Mark Z is from Apple Valley, Minnesota. On a visit to Singapore, he fell into an acting career, moved here, and says he had no problems giving up American-style civil liberties in exchange for a clean, safe city.
They're the highest paid civil servants in the world. And so you get some very smart people running the country. And that's something that, you can't say in all Western countries. Hint, hint.
By paying high-level politicians $1 million or more a year, they lower temptation to accept bribes. Singapore has one of the world's 10 lowest rates of corruption. And according to extensive polls by Gallup's Peter Ong, this creates an extraordinary sense of trust and stability, despite the harsh laws.
In terms of happiness, people need stability, and people need the ability to predict what their lives will look like in a week's time, in a year's time, in 10 years' time.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the happiest, what would you say you are?
Probably 8.
An 8?
Yeah. Around that, 8.
And what would make you happier?
More money.
Ah, yes. Now for the other pillars of Singapore society, the 5 C's.
Cars, cash, credit cards, condominium, and country club.
Selena Lin is a self-made millionaire and one of the nation's best-known bachelorette socialites. So how many pairs of shoes do you have?
At last count, I have 300 pairs.
300.
Yeah, I need the shoes.
You need them. But despite her apartment full of arts, her snazzy Porsche, she is the least happy person I'll meet.
Sometimes I get unhappy if I compare. Of course, someone else, will be wealthier, having a more luxurious life, driving a bigger car, having a bigger house.
She's a good example of why Singapore is not quite as happy as less materialistic Denmark. Keeping up with the Joneses is a major source of unhappiness. And this place is so competitive.
Every day, how much time should you spend sleeping?
Kids spend their vacation in seminars on time management. But their drive to earn and spend and impress is tempered by Confucian values. The family always comes first.
This morning, happiness is having breakfast with my 3 grandchildren. 3, 4, 5.
We saw it in Jenny Chua, the former CEO of the famous Raffles Hotel. And in Douglas Fu, one of the most successful restaurateurs in Asia.
You seem very happy. You're the happiest guy I've met. Really? In the world, maybe.
Really? Okay, thank you.
His goal is to create a sushi chain as big as Starbucks or McDonald's, just as soon as he's done playing with his kids.
Can you have both? Can you have it both ways?
There are a lot of things I want to do in my life. I want to make sure that by the time I leave, when he calls up and say, now it's the time to go, I will leave smiling and saying that I have lived a very fulfilling, meaningful life.
Our search also begs the question, what about the unhappiest countries on Earth? For obvious reasons, Iraq is near the bottom of the list. But alongside are less violent places like Moldova and Zimbabwe. Poverty is a big reason, but wealthy Italy ranks itself as the unhappiest country in Western Europe. And the common factor is corruption. If organized criminals run your neighborhood, if you can't trust your government, police, or neighbors, happiness is much harder to come by. Now, if you're wondering about the happiest place in America, Eric Weiner scanned the globe for his new book, The Geography of Bliss. And using the lessons learned, he picked Asheville, North Carolina.
You've got the mountains, beautiful mountains all around. You have a tremendous, thriving, artistic community. Every other shop is a coffee shop or a bookstore or something like that.
So social setting.
You have a really strong sense of community here. And if I've learned anything from researching this book, it's that other people matter. There's no such thing as personal happiness. Your happiness is part and parcel of those around you.
So in the end, if you want to find happiness, find the strongest possible community. Community is why contentment can be found along with the high taxes in Denmark, the severe laws in Singapore, and the crushing poverty in India. One study found that people living on the streets of Calcutta are actually happier than those in California, because the homeless in Fresno may have more access to food and shelter, but the houseless in India, they still have each other.
When we come back, can an oddball dream that starts in childhood bring you happiness? Find out when this man builds a barge made entirely of cork.
To the cork boat and to all of us.
Whatever floats your boat. Next.